All right. Hello and welcome to the part two of the 15th Circuit Roundtable, Fall Roundtable event. These events are hosted by the American Law Bar Association's Law Student Division, and they're hosted in the purpose to benefit law students and help enhance and empower the student body and as a way to becoming lawyers. With me today, this event is actually uh, our webinar dealing with the UBE. We're going to be talking about the Uniform Bar exam, the pros and its cons, and talk about which states have been admitted and the states that have been admitted, what an individual in that state can do with that type of bar, and how they can actually go and practice law in multiple states. So I'm going to first go around real quick and let everyone, or actually we've been having trouble with some of the mics and everything, so I'm actually going to introduce everyone real quick myself, and then from there we will go around with the presentation. So with us today we have three actual members of the Lieutenant Governors for the 15th Circuit, and those members are Annie Wan, Fabian Vega. Oh, my apologies, we have four here. Annie Wan, Fabian Vega, Swipe, and Daniela Hernandez. And these four individuals are all actually part of the 15th Circuit Board of Governors, and they work with me on trying to enhance and empower the law students of the 15th Circuit. And for those who are not aware, the 15th Circuit contains 9 law schools from the states of Arizona, Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, and Wyoming. So between there, all accredited ABA law schools all actually we do participate and help with those 9 law schools. So to get us started, I will talk a little bit about what the UB is, and from there ask a few questions to do this, and let's get a conversation going. So the Uniform Bar is coordinated by the NCBE, the National Conference of Bar Examiners, which Judith Gunderson is actually a part of, and she can explain more about that in a little bit. And it's composed of multi-state essay examinations, the MPE, and 2 multi-state performance tests, the MPTs tests, and the multi-state bar examination, the MBE. It is uniformly administered, graded, and scored by users' jurisdictions and results in a portable score that can be transferred to other UBE jurisdictions. There is actually a website. The website is nbex.org. If you go to this website, there is a beautiful little map right when you get there that actually highlights and shows you where all the states are in accordance and which states are actually UBE approved. I will go and I will further and say that for our purposes of the 15th Circuit, we have 4 states that are actually now UBE approved, and those are Arizona, Utah, Colorado, and Wyoming. At the moment, New Mexico is not. So one of the things that we would be promoting, and me personally, who I am a supporter of the UBE, is we would like to advocate as a circuit and what we can do to get New Mexico to also be UBE, and then not only do we represent a circuit of 5 states and 9 schools, we represent 5 states that you can equally transfer and work. So every person that you actually meet in these states and at these meetings could really be your employee or employer someday. So this is an excellent, absolutely a wonderful opportunity to not only promote the idea of eliminating any biases we have in law while promoting diversity and equality. We can use these tests to help make the entire nation more equal and give our good students and individuals opportunities to go out of school for law school, or go out of state for law school, not have to feel contained in their personal state because they want to practice law there. You can now go to Arizona and go to law school, or go to Colorado and go to law school, then return to your home state of Washington or Iowa or Missouri, go home and practice simply because you went to a UBE state. That's really a wonderful concept. So with that, I will put the discussion. Judith will take over and explain a little bit about what she does and listening to the UBE, and hopefully she can enlighten us with a little bit of the pros and the cons about the UBE, and then from there we can ask a few questions about how individuals go from being able to practice in one state to another state, and how simple of a process it really is. So, Judith, with that, I would like, or you can have the floor.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Kirk. Thanks, everybody, for calling in and for listening. Kirk, you did a nice job summarizing what the UBE is. It's really a uniform exam, uniformly administered and uniformly graded across those UBE jurisdictions. It comes from existing components that have been in use in the country for years and years. The MEE, the 2 MPTs, and the MBE. As you said, jurisdictions are responsible on their own. I mean, with our grading materials, but they grade their own. They grade their own MPTs and MEEs. Jurisdictions decide their own cut scores. So, and the range right now is on. It ranges from a 260 on the low end to a 280 on the high end. So each jurisdiction makes up its own cut score. So it's certainly possible you could sit, let's say, in Colorado, which I think is a 273 or 276, and you might not gain admission in Colorado, but you would still have many other UBE jurisdictions to which you could send your score. Essentially, the UBE gives law students, really for the first time almost ever, score portability. As you said, Kirk, you can sit in any one of these UBE jurisdictions, and you can then be eligible for a job, based on how well you do on the exam and the cut score, for a job in any one of these other 17 jurisdictions. Now, some important caveats are, jurisdictions, of course, still get to set their own cut score, so there's a pretty big variation. It seems to me that I'm looking at my chart here, and a good chart for you to look at, this is a really good reference, is on our website, which is ncbex.org, and it's the Comprehensive Guide to Bar Admission Requirements. And all things UBE are on two charts. Chart 6 and Chart 10, and those tell you how you can be admitted by transfer of UBE score and what's required for the UBE. So it looks like most UBE jurisdictions are settling about at a cut score of a 270. But again, jurisdictions select the cut score. One important thing, if you take the UBE, you don't have to take another bar exam, but you still have to go through each new UBE jurisdiction's character and fitness application process. So that may be, an investigation period that lasts a couple months. It might last 6 months. That really doesn't change under the uniform bar exam. So you're eligible to be admitted, but you have to undergo the character and fitness process. Another thing that remains within the jurisdiction's control is who's eligible even to transfer a score. So for example, if you went to, let's say, a non-ABA accredited law school, there are some jurisdictions that don't allow you to sit for their bar exam, and they still get to set those eligibility requirements. Each jurisdiction decides how long they're going to accept UBE score, and again, there's a bit of a range there as well. That's set forth in Chart 10 in our Comprehensive Guide to Bar Admission Requirements. And that period, I'm just looking here, that's about, at the short end, about 18 months in Idaho, up to the longer end, about 5 years in Nebraska, and it looks like Arizona. I'm looking at the chart now. So there's a difference there in terms of how long a jurisdiction will accept a score. Each UBE jurisdiction also determines on its own whether or not you will be granted accommodation. So let's say you're someone who is asking for extra time or any kind of other special accommodations. That is jurisdiction specific. They make the decisions there. And then finally, jurisdictions decide whether or not there's going to be a local component that you also have to satisfy or pass in order to be admitted. And out of the 18 jurisdictions, I'm not precisely sure, but I want to say about 5 or 6 of them have some form of a local component. For some, it's like Missouri, for example, it's an online exam about Missouri law. I think it's open book. And you can take that, and if you answer those questions, a certain number of those questions correctly, then you've satisfied the local component. Arizona has a little bit more like a course that you have to attend. I think it's online, but it's almost like a CLE. Alabama used to have a local component that was actually administered in conjunction with the bar exam. They've stopped doing that, and now they have, too, an online program that I think took a page from Arizona's book. So there's a variation in terms of UBE jurisdictions for what they require for a local component. But again, that is all in the Comprehensive Guide to Bar Admission Requirements as a nice little chart. And then, of course, you can go on the individual websites for each jurisdiction and find out more about the timing of the local component and just what actually is required. And then finally, you'd have to take it to be admitted anywhere anyway, except for Maryland right now and Wisconsin. But there's, of course, the MPRE requirement, which most people take care of while they're still in law school. Is that helpful?
It's actually beyond helpful. You've actually hit on a lot of very, very important and very interesting topics and information. A lot of things I didn't even realize the UB did and contain and consist of. You did mention, and I want to bring this first question simply because I am in a state where there is a UB, Arizona. And Arizona, at the time, I think still is one of the highest scores, the past third highest, I'm sure. But in July 2016, New York will be officially added. And I think we were mentioning or talking earlier, Vermont also. And with those two states, New York, who's always been
Right.
New York's always been known for having a very interesting and using, strangely a difficult bar exam. So it's interesting to see if they what scores they'll be posting if that information hasn't already been released yet, because they might actually be one of the higher scores for admitteds. But with
let me just interject. New York is going to have a cut score of a 266. Arizona's cut score is a 273. The highest is Alaska at a 280.
Wow. Wow. So Alaska is the highest at 280, and 266 cut score that New York gives the possibility that even if an individual comes just short of the Arizona state bar with a 271, they would still have the opportunity to apply and basically apply for the bar then in New York, or how would that process work? Because you did make mention of something like that, and I wasn't sure if I heard it correctly, or if that's actually what it means. An individual who might have, for example, in Arizona, not at the score of 173, could they take that score of 171 and then go and practice in New York without having to take the bar again?
Okay, it's a 200. It's like sort of doubling the MBE is sort of what it is. So it's this 200 some point scale. So Arizona is a 273. So let's say you score a 272 in Arizona. You could look at the chart in the comp guide and look at all other UBE jurisdictions that require a score less than a 272 or less, and you could seek to have the score transferred to those UBE jurisdictions, and that would actually leave you with quite a number of jurisdictions to which you could apply. As you said, Arizona is a little bit on the higher end of this. There are several UBE jurisdictions that actually require a 260, and that's the lowest UBE score right now. So you don't. The takeaway is you do not have to be admitted in the jurisdiction in which you're sitting. You have to be a bona fide candidate for admission. But if you don't score, you don't make the cut score, you still have a valid score, and you can transport that score to another jurisdiction where you have made the cut score. Again, it doesn't mean you're admitted in that receiving jurisdiction. You still have to go through the character and fitness, you have to apply, but it allows you to not have to take a bar exam again. And of course, you have to pay a fee for all of these. Every jurisdiction has a fee that's imposed to accept the score and to go through the application process.
That's perfect. Actually, that's actually exactly what I wanted to answer about. So basically, an individual could then pick a bar here in Arizona, or like you said, Alaska, where you need a significantly higher score, and the highest score to pass. And if you just fail in Alaska, you can go basically and practice in another state if you're admitted, or at least have the opportunity and chance to do that. That's actually really interesting.
You
I think,
could.
yeah,
You
exactly.
could.
That's something that a law student should be a little bit more aware of, and especially before they choose a law school, and maybe if they are a little bit more aware of that, they will choose schools that are located in states that admit or admit or that actually take the UBE.
It's a boon for law students. I mean, it's really a great thing, and it will now have been around for 5 years come February, and for there to be, in the world of bar exams, for there to be 5 years ago right now, there were only two jurisdictions that were going to come on board in February of 2011. They were North Dakota and Missouri. And so now, 5 years later, to have there be 16 more jurisdictions have come on board, and then to have New York, recently announced, and to say that they're going to come on board in July is just it's a real boost to the momentum of the UBE. With New York, with all of their numbers of so many people sitting for the exam, that has really, I think, been a huge gain in momentum for the uniform bar exam movement. So it's great for law students. I think it's great for employers. It gives them many more options in terms of hiring people. They don't have to wait for that twice a year for someone to take the exam. I think it's good for law schools. Their students have so many more options for applying for jobs. So it really opens up employment opportunities, which is good for law schools. And I think, too, for law schools with bar prep, it probably helps to simplify a little bit the bar prep approach when there is, just if most of your students are sitting for just one exam, there isn't quite as much differentiated or particularized bar prep for many different jurisdictions. So Kirk asked me before we got on the call here, what was the downside to it? Honestly, I can't really see a downside for employers, law schools, or law students. And one other thing to think about, I think we've had, since its inception in almost 5 years ago, I think we've had about 26,000 people take the uniform bar exam across all of the administrations. And roughly, we expect it to increase, but roughly we've had about 10% of those scores be transferred to other UBE jurisdictions. So for states that are worried about the floodgates opening and their states being inundated with newly licensed lawyers from other jurisdictions, that really hasn't happened either. So I think, all in all, it's been a gradual process. And I think with New York, we probably will see more score transfers because of the volume in New York.
Interesting you bring in New York back, or bring up New York again with that. I mean, New York, like we were speaking about earlier, is a very powerful state, and it's one that is very influential. And when it comes to law, it alone has, I think, somewhere around 20-something state or 20-something law schools in itself. I mean, it has its own circuit underneath the law student division. So it'd be interesting to see what other major states or bigger states will adopt this and take this kind of a example from New York. But it's interesting also because when you look at the map, all of the more western states have adopted a UBE, and a lot of those states are states that are very small in the populations, and they don't contain that many law schools, and are a little bit more of a open space, and it makes you a lot of these states have adopted it to to also induce and entice individuals to come to their state and to come practice law there and to take the UBE. And it's interesting to see that now you have New York all the way on the East Coast, one of the first ones on the East Coast to do it, to see what will happen now. Maybe it'll start a new trend where we'll see a trickling effect straight down from New York all the way down the coast, where states all start adopting it. So, I mean,
yeah. Well, that's an interesting phenomenon. I mean, you're right. You know, we started off with really just Missouri and North Dakota, and Missouri's not even in the Northwest, and North Dakota really isn't either. But you know, then a lot of the jurisdictions that became UBE were using, not all of them, but were using the UBE components already. The MEE, the MPT. You know, and so it wasn't much of a stretch for them to do it. And then, you know, slowly the map starts to get filled in. And, you know, I think if you're in one of those states that's surrounded, you might say, well, gee, maybe we at least better consider it. And for a while, the only state that we had in the Northeast was New Hampshire. New Hampshire started in February of 2014, and New Hampshire was pretty lonely out there, and now New Hampshire, of course, has some company with Vermont and New York.
And actually, that brings up another question. Now we're on the topic of other states. I'm
going to go get my power cord. I'm losing power here.
Oh, no. My goodness. Well, this is a quick question then. Hopefully you get your power cord charging your computer good.
Okay, I've got it.
An individual who, for example, passes Arizona with a 176 or something, so they easily get past Arizona, they're good. And let's say in the future, Illinois or Kentucky or Texas or another state adopts UBE, does that individual have to take the bar over again, or how does that work for a state for
well,
yeah.
Okay, so that's the question. If someone takes the UBE before a jurisdiction becomes a UBE jurisdiction, that again is something where you'd have to go on the jurisdiction's website, or you could look at the comp guide that we have on our website, and that tells you what that look back window is for a jurisdiction to accept a score. So generally, if a jurisdiction, and you have to look at the date by which it's effective. Is the day the exam was taken, the day people were sworn in, is the day grades were released. So you have to go back and look at the chart, because each state's policies are a little bit different and their time frames are calculated a little bit differently. What you cannot do is if, let's say, there's a jurisdiction that basically is already giving the same components of the UBE, and I should state that the components for the UBE are all weighted the same. So there could be jurisdictions that right now, for example, are giving all three components, the MEE, the MPT, and the MBE, and the weighting isn't according to the uniform bar exam standard. And that weighting is 50% weight is given to, there's a composite score, 50% is given to the MBE, 30% is given to the MEE, and 20% to the MPT. So the jurisdictions also have to follow that weighting. And I forgot to mention that before, so they have to follow that common weighting. So if there's a jurisdiction, for example, that has the common weighting and has all three of the components, if someone takes that exam before the jurisdiction becomes UBE, that non-UBE score doesn't convert to a UBE score. You have to actually take the UBE in a UBE jurisdiction. There's no sort of you know, relating back to when you took the exam.
Okay. So and then that ending right there is basically so what individuals who have.
Hi, I'm here to see Tim for 2 o'clock. Daniela. Yeah.
Daniela. People. I thought she was asking a question. I was like, perfect. Actually, I wanted to do that too. And give everyone else an opportunity to get a chance to talk real quick if they want to, and they want to share any experience they have or anything, knowledge that they know about the UBE, or if they have any questions too. I mean, this is a wonderful and great opportunity to talk to an individual who's literally a national representative and someone who has their fingers and constantly wrapped around the idea of promoting and really wanting to make a change in the nation by getting more states on board. And this is a great opportunity to ask any questions you might have, even on a personal level, about what might personally happen to you in a circumstance that you don't get a high enough score in a bar, or what state would be better for doing certain things. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask those. So I'm going to open that up. If anyone has any questions or anything, just unmute yourself and start talking.
I can talk. Well, if no one has any questions, I can tell you that what we're doing is we're trying to get the word to the deans about the uniform bar exam and make sure that law schools know about it. Most law deans are in favor of it because, as I said before, it's really good for their students. It opens up the job market, in a market that can be pretty tough. So we're trying to make sure that their information gets out there. You as law students, it's something too when you go to your career services office, or you're talking to one of your associate deans. I mean, it's good to ask, well, do you know what the status is in our state, and what do you think about it? I think the more people talk about it, the more it gets on everyone's radar, and it actually is promoted. We have a quarterly magazine called The Bar Examiner, and that's also on our website. And the issue, an issue in 2016, I think in spring, will be entirely devoted to the UBE with a lot of information and essays, and that would be a good resource to promote to your law schools as well.
Actually really great. And I didn't mean to make it directed as like questions if anyone had to ask. You can also just introduce yourself if you like, and take the opportunity to talk at a national level also, and promote any ideas or any biasms you have or anything towards the UBE. So, but yeah, so I'm prepared to open on anyone can talk. I mean, David looks like he wants to say something over there.
I actually do have one question for Judith. Could you share with our viewers what your role within the National Bar Examiners Committee is?
Sure, that's a good question, and I neglected to say that when I began and introduced myself. I'm Director of Test Operations, and I've been at the conference for 15 years now, so I've been there a long time, and I have a lot of hands-on experience with the MEE and the MPT, and I also used to staff an MBE committee, but I oversee the basically test development and production for all of our exams.
And I have one more question. For people who are taking or who are about to take the bar, especially in a UBE state, what is there any specific or any good bar prep material that you think would be useful for our viewers to know, other than, of course, Barbary and those Kaplan? Is there any, or even any tips or tricks, just to I guess kind of prepare a little bit better and just feel more sure about sure about yourself for the to take the bar exam?
Yeah, well, that's a really good question. One thing I can tell you that many bar prep companies license our materials, so they actually license the real released questions that we have. So that would be the MBE released questions, which would primarily at this point probably be the online practice exam questions. There are 4 of those. And they also license the MEE and the MPT. But let me say, for those of you who don't have the money to take those courses, or if you do and you want to supplement it, many study aids are available on our website either for free or about $15 or $25 a pop. So they're really reasonably priced. So if you go on our website, there are 2 places really about to access the study aids. There's our online store, and that's, of course, just like it sounds. You have to pay for the materials. You can order hard copy or you can download. I think downloads are $15 or $20 for the MEE, and I think $20 or $25 for the MPT. But they're also, if you go on the website and then on the main menu, it says examinations, and at the bottom it says preparing for the examination. And that will take you to a link to the online store, but it will, and I'm not on the website now, otherwise I could direct you a little bit more clearly, so I apologize for that. But when you go on the preparing for the exam, and I'm talking about the MEE, the essay exam, and the MPT, the performance test, they will say released questions that are free. And there are dozens and dozens and dozens. of MEE questions and analyses that are every bit as representative and good to study for as the ones that you have to pay for. And like I said, there are dozens of them that are available for free. Same thing with the MPTs. There aren't as many of those because there's only 2 given per administration, but there are probably a couple dozen of those that are available for free as well. And you get the item and you get the point sheet. So that's free. Those are really, those are authentic sources. They are released exams. I mean, it's just like in law school, right? You know, professors sometimes release old exams. Those are usually pretty helpful and pretty on point. So I would strongly suggest just accessing things that are free or really reasonably priced on our website. With regard to the MBE, we now have 4 online practice exams. I think those are about $50 to $55 per online practice exam. You get a year's subscription and you can access them as often or not as you want to over the course of a year. And you know, the practice exams you can take it under exam-like conditions. You can take questions 1 through 100. And you can then, and you don't have to do it that way, but you can, let's say, answer question number 1. Let's say it's a torts question. You answered C. You can click on to find out if C is right. And not only will you find out if C is right, you'll find out why A, B, and D are wrong and why C is right. So there are annotated explanations that are actually crafted by the people who are on our drafting committees. So again, really authentic materials that don't cost a lot, that I would strongly suggest people to take time and look at. Another thing that I think is really important to access as you're preparing for the exam are the subject matter outlines that are available for both the MEE and the MBE. The MEE tests on the MBE topics, so those subject matter outlines are the same. And then we also test on non-MBE subjects, and those are set forth in quite a bit of detail on the website. And I think there's actually just a direct link that says subject matter outline, and you open up a PDF. So those are really important to look at, so you know, well, what are they testing on here? What kind of questions within the contract specifications are they going to test on? So that's really important to look at those too. I didn't mention the MPT because the MPT specs, given that it's a skills test, is just a different set of of an outline. We're basically going over there what we're testing. So it's not really substantive, but it's putting you on notice that, gee, we might be testing problem solving. We might be testing how well do you communicate in writing. Can you identify and resolve ethical issues, that kind of thing. So that's important to look at as well, but it isn't necessarily so much a substantive outline for people.
Everything you just said was absolutely fantastic, and while you were speaking, I went onto the website and looked at it myself, and it's actually pretty amazing. A lot of those past and prior tests are ones that you can probably find if you search around Google and you try your hardest to find one. It'll give you free samples of it, but it's really nice that in just a few clicks, literally, it's popping out right when you get their study aids, that you can actually acquire some of that information that easy. I mean, it's actually really good. Great questions, Fabian, and absolutely fantastic. I mean, unbelievably amazing. Great presentation. We're going to get cut here soon, though. But Judith, I really wanted to thank you for everything, and I wanted to also make a mention that Chris was having problems with his the connection. For some reason, the email I wasn't sending the right link, and so he wasn't able to get in. So on that, he tried his hardest. Hopefully we can have another talk on this in the future. Judith, if you're ever available, I will keep in close contact, but this is going to be something that we're going to be promoting very strongly this year for the 15th Circuit, so we might do another webinar, and if you're up for it, maybe have a little bit more of a question, a little more of a discussion
Sure.
with people there. You'd be absolutely fantastic to have, and I would love to pick your brain so much more if we had the time. I have so many other questions to ask you too. It's killing me. But we have another part 3 that's coming up here in a little bit, so we're going to have to cut here shortly. Sorry for the individuals who didn't have an opportunity to talk. Most of you will be returning anyways in the next meeting, so we will be seeing each other's faces in a little bit. I wanted to take this time one more last time. Judith, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. It was my pleasure. Thanks.
No, you're fantastic, and everything you said was absolutely perfect. absolutely perfect. And this is something I'm going to go back and review before I even take the bar, or later on if I have any questions about if I want to be transferred or anything like that. I'm going to come right back here and just, I mean, this was absolutely perfect. This is exactly what we were looking for. So
Well, that's
thank you
great.
so much. And take care and have a great rest of the weekend, everybody. And enjoy the rest of the midterms and fall break, and have a great rest of the semester. And I'll see you guys soon.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judith. Take care.
Thank you.